Allison. I'm a professor of theater here at Adams, and it is my great pleasure this morning to introduce just briefly to you Holli McFadden. Holli is a transfer student here to Adams. She spent her first 2 years at Casper Community College up in Wyoming, where she earned her associate's degree. She then transferred here to Adams in 2010 and has been a theater major since that time. She's been my costume shop foreman for the last year and a half, which means that she oversees all of the construction of all of the garments that we make here for theatrical productions. She's worked with me on every production since her start at Adams, and that makes 12 evenings of theater, more if you count one act separately. She has costume designed 2 productions here at Adams, and also will be costume designing the holiday show next year as her senior thesis. She assistant costume designed several more shows. She's built almost countless numbers of garments for both productions here and elsewhere. And very excitingly, she was just hired to be the costume designer, designer for the Kaleidoscope Players at the Santa Fe Trail Players School in Raton, New Mexico for this summer, where they'll be doing four productions in a very short amount of time. So please give your full and undivided attention to Ms. McFadden.
All right, so I'm Holli McFadden. I'm a junior theater major. The name of my presentation to you is Sewing the Seams of the Future, as I am a costume emphasis. Design is a plan or drawing produced to show the look and function or workings of a building, garment, or other objects before it is built or made. I'm going to give you a brief history of how I got started in costume design. When I was 8, I was in 4-H, which is a club that helps develop skills outside of just schoolwork. And so it's mostly focused on agriculture. And so my mom decided it was a good idea to put me in all kinds of sewing stuff, and I absolutely hated it. She would pull out the sewing machine and I would cry. I hated it so much. And so when I was a junior in high school, I decided that I was going to just plunge into doing theater at my high school. And acting was there, but I wasn't exactly into acting. So I tried to go to the scene shop first, and that wasn't my thing. So they told me that there was costumes, so I went back there, and the woman that did costumes at my high school completely inspired me to do it in my future career. So that's how I got into doing costumes. Big things that go into design are the concept, the design, and the construction. And the concept is an abstract idea, and an example of that was Dr. Taylor last year did Romeo and Juliet, and it's Shakespeare, and he set it outside of Shakespearean time, so that would be a concept. Design is the idea that goes behind putting it all together, so what is the concept comes into reality. And then the construction is building what you see on stage. A concept can be almost anything that a director thinks of. An example of that would be a traditional. So sticking to the concept in which the script is formally written in. A show that I have designed is Merlin in the Cave of Dreams, and it was a medieval period play that was left in the era that it was written in. The concept becomes a reality by reading the script over and over and over. And as you read it, you're looking for specifics of the characters and marking where they're at and who they are and how do they relate to this show. So once you keep reading it over and over, that's how you start getting ideas to design your show. While designing, keeping your director in the loop of your design is essential, because if they don't like what you're doing, then you have to come up with another thing. So something to keep the director in the loop of this would be rendering. So you draw out what you think that the characters should be wearing, and if they don't like it, then you go in and you do another one, and you keep doing it until they give you the okay. So you just keep asking questions to the director. And then one of the big things that I ask myself during my design process, is it cohesive? Do all of the characters come together in the end, and does it look good? Some other things that go into it as well are color. What kind of colors are you going to use? Line, how is it going to sit on the character? An example that I brought in of line is this dress that I made a couple years ago. It was for a recycle project, and obviously it's Capri Suns. And there's the line that goes here, the line that makes the skirt go, and on the back, I did an asymmetrical line, so there's all kinds of line that you can put into a garment. Some other things that go into it are shape. So depending on the show, there are many different shapes, and sorry, I'm trying to think of the word that it is. Shape and mass, like how big is it going to be, like how much space is it going to take up? Is it going to distract from another character because of how big it is? There's just little details that you have to pay attention to that could throw off a lot of it. I'm going to go back to cohesive. This is actually Merlin in the Cave of Dreams that I said I designed before. I used a lot of natural colors, and in the middle there's a family, and so they're in browns. Outside of the family are the ensemble, and they're in greens and blues. And then on the outer sides were his dream family, and they were of royalty, so I put them in purples, but still tied it in. And then in the back is Merlin, and he just has all the colors of everything, bringing it all together as one, so it unifies the whole cast together. So these are a couple more pictures just to show a little more detail of how they fit together. So how do you know how to make it cohesive? And honestly, it depends from person to person on what you think would be cohesive. A lot of it has to do with color, and so for Merlin, that's what it was for me, was colors of how each person would go together. These are just some of the questions that you can ask yourself, and it really varies from person to person on what you think makes a show come together. Some of my personal questions that I ask are, who are the characters? How do they relate to one another? Why are they there? And which characters interact most with other characters? Because that last question is, you could have somebody wearing hot pink and then have somebody wearing bright orange, and they kind of look weird together, or a burnt orange, I guess, would be better. They just don't contrast very well together. They don't mix well. So those are a couple of them that I ask myself personally. After you have your design down, you explain your design aspects to the crew, and you allow them to ask any questions that they have, and then you start on any necessary construction. Stuff doesn't magically appear all the time. A lot of the time we have to make it, and a lot of the time we have to go thrift store shopping or Walmart trips. So we live in a small town, it happens. And sometimes it happens, but there are random donations that magically appear, and there's like a perfect pair of earrings or something in there, and it just brings it all together, and it's awesome. This was for Merlin. On your left is material that we cut out hundreds and hundreds of squares of little pieces of material, sewed them all together, and then cut the pattern out and made a robe. So sometimes you have to make your own material to get the look and the feel of what you want to make, and it takes a long process to do it all in. But the finished product looks really good. So yeah, from point A to point B, there's a lot to do, like cutting out millions of squares. And then the amazing part is seeing your finished product on stage, because it makes you feel accomplished, and not everybody knows what goes into everything to make the clothing on stage come together. So it just is a really good accomplishment. I think that's the end of my slides. But right now, we are working on a show called A Flea in Her Ear, which is a comedy. And this is a costume that I am working on currently. It's not finished yet, so I apologize about that. But this is what the hotel owner's wife is wearing. So there is a lot that goes into it. So if you guys come see it, now you know that all of the women's clothing have been made by our costume shop. So yeah. And that's that. Oh, there's some more pictures, sorry. But that is my presentation for you.